Breaking news to CBS Sports HQ. Jalen Hurts, Eagles quarterback, may not be playing Saturday in Week 16 because of a shoulder injury. And that's not fun for fantasy managers because I'm sure Jalen Hurts has a lot of you get a first-round bye as we're in the fantasy semifinals in the majority of leagues. So Jalen Hurts may not go. It could be Gardner Minshew starting for the Eagles. Talk a little fantasy here on CBS Sports HQ. I'm Jamie Eisberg. That's Dave Richards. So, Dave, we got this developing story about one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy. You got Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Those three are jockeying to be the number one quarterback in fantasy this year. Now, we may not get Jalen Hurts in the fantasy semifinals as the Cowboys and the Eagles are meeting in a huge game with NFC East and playoff implications on the line. So, if Jalen Hurts can't go, it could be Gardner Minshew. How good could he be for fantasy managers if Minshew has to start?
Well, he won't be anywhere near as good as Jalen Hurts, and I think that's stating the obvious. But will he crush you? Will he absolutely just be a terrible fantasy quarterback? I don't think so, Jamie. We've seen all year long a lot of playmakers in this Philadelphia offense, from A.J. Brown to Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert expected back, an awesome offensive line, and a really good run game. And this is a matchup that the Eagles, they don't have to win this one to have the number one seed, but it would be nice if they did. They could wrap it all up and just get it all done and over with. So I'm kind of hoping that they push Jalen Hurts to play, but if he doesn't, Gardner Minshew can play. And we've seen it before from Gardner Minshew where he's been okay as a fantasy quarterback. He wouldn't be the number one guy that I would go run to add off the waiver wire if I had Jalen Hurts on my team, but he's on the list. He's on the top three. And let's face it, if Jalen Hurts plays and the Eagles win this week, he's going to rest the rest of the season anyway. You're not going to see him again in Week 17 for your fantasy championship. So you need to go and get a quarterback right now if you've got Jalen Hurts as your starter in fantasy.
Minshew started 2 games in 2021 for the Eagles. He played in Week 13 against the Jets, had over 20 fantasy points in that game, and then played Week 18. We know it wasn't a lot of weapons around him. He scored 17 fantasy points against the Cowboys in that matchup. So we'll see how he does if he does have to start. So some of the quarterbacks you could be looking at off the waiver wire, as Dave alluded to, there are some options, not a lot of great options. Now, you want to check to see if somebody like maybe Daniel Jones is available. He could have an opportunity to play really well in Week 18. Brock Purdy's obviously coming off a couple of strong starts, so you can look at him. But I think Gardner Minshew, 3% roster, is going to be someone we spent a lot of time talking about on Tuesday's waiver wire show on Fantasy Football Today, which you can watch at noon Eastern right here on CBS Sports HQ. So, Dave, you alluded to the weapons for the Eagles, and Dallas Goedert could be returning. That's the expectation. But we've seen, obviously, a lot of great numbers for the receivers here in Philadelphia. When you talk about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Goddard as well. So is the impact on the quarterback potential change if Hurts can't go? How bad could it be for the receiving option?
It can be very bad for them because we know that Jalen Hurts is connected on a ton of deep passes to both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And I don't think Gardner Minshew is quite up to the task of doing that type of work with them. I think the volume will still be decent. I think Philadelphia will morph back into being a balanced offense. They'll try and run the football on Dallas. I think they'll succeed in doing it. The Cowboys' run defense, it's been okay. It hasn't really been great. They've stepped back a little bit. And there are holes in their secondary, so there's potential for these receivers to make plays after the catch. I would still view A.J. Brown as a must-start fantasy wide receiver, but more of a top 15 guy instead of a top 5 guy. And Devontae Smith, it's a double whammy for him. If there's no Jalen Hurts and if Dallas Goedert's back, we've seen it before from him this season where he's just been okay as a fantasy receiver. Call him a number 3 wideout if that's the case. Hurts is out, Goedert's in, and then Goedert a must-start fantasy tight end.
Yeah, Devontae Smith, 5 straight games without Dallas Goedert. He's at 8+ targets, and he scored 13 or more PPR points in all but one of those games. So hopefully he can still keep it rolling, but obviously the quarterback change could be a big impact. Dallas Goedert, if he does return, you'll check out our rankings. You'll see that he'll still be a number 1 tight end, but on the lower side of that. We'll have a lot more discussion about the Jalen Hurts injury on our Fantasy Football Today podcast. You can find it wherever podcasts are available. We help you dominate your fantasy leagues in the playoffs, and certainly once the regular season ends, we'll help you this off season as well. Check it out, the Fantasy Football Today podcast, wherever podcasts are available.